Hello. I'm going to say good morning because it is morning here in the UK. It's about 9:30 in the morning. It's a lovely sunny day and it's Saturday and it's the 28th of May. I cannot believe May is nearly over. I say this at the end of every month these days. You'd think that given the past couple of years where life has really slowed down to a halt, that, you know, even now you'd think like time would seem to drag by, but it doesn't. But I don't know whether it's that or whether it's my age or just that I'm comfortable in my life, is that time just seems to fly by. It's wonderful. In some ways, it is. But welcome to my arty little channel. I shouldn't say little, my arty channel is growing a bit at a time still, which is fantastic. Just welcome here. Thank you to everybody who's subscribed. I really do appreciate each and every one of you so much. And thank you for the shares, for all the lovely comments, feedback I'm getting, suggestions as well for content, and just for just being so lovely. What else can I say? It's lovely. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so if you like what you see. It's completely free to do so. That word subscribe suggests you're being asked to pay, and it's not. It's completely free. And all I ask is you click the little button and that you come along and you have a go at drawing along with me. Or you just find my videos relaxing and calming and just something nice to watch. So, I like watching people create. And I'm particularly myself drawn to people who have a more calm and measured response rather than those who are less calm in their ways. That doesn't mean that they're all over the place, but yeah, I'm not a type A personality, as it's called. I'm very much an introvert, so calm and relaxed. That's my way, and that's the whole purpose of art for me, is to be calm and relaxed, and to be myself. So thank you very much for joining me. Okay, I am going to do today. I'm going to go along with a suggestion given to me by Keith, who thought it would be a lovely idea if I could carry on my lessons on whimsical houses by creating a kind of whimsical house city, where it's more going to be a village. And I've got two pieces of paper here that I've coloured. This is Distress ink. These are Neocolour with some gesso on the top. And I don't think, even though I've attacked this with a hairdryer, it still feels quite cool to the touch every time I touch it. And that tells me it's not entirely dry all the way through. And it's also rather curled. So I'm going to pop that underneath my cutting mat here for some weight and pressure and to flatten it out over time. And I'm going to use my Distress ink background here. Let me get my glasses on so I can see clearly what I'm going to do. So it's going to be a whimsical house kind of scene, and I do want to put some kind of foreground in this, because I could have the houses floating on clouds. That would be really cute. The only time I ever got any praise for art when I was in school was when I was in, I think it was what we'd now call Year 8, my second year of secondary school, so I was 12 years old at the time. I had a lovely art teacher. I was the only art teacher who ever encouraged me. And every year we had, the school did, for St David's Day, which is March the 1st, you had a school Eisteddfod, and there were loads of competitions on stage and off stage. And Eisteddfod is sort of like a celebration of arts and culture in Wales. And it was revived back in the late 1800s with sort of like the Druidic and Egyptian revival and all kinds of things that were going on. And it's become a mainstay still, even now in schools in Wales, they still have their Eisteddfodau. And this art competition was you had to draw a picture or create a piece of art. And I think there were a couple of prompts, and one of them was skyscrapers. And my head went instantly to that idea of having tall buildings floating on clouds, scraping the sky. And that's exactly what I drew. And thinking back, it was whimsical, it was colourful, it was everything I do now, just perhaps in a less, dare I say, polished style. Because I'm a lot older now. I'm a lot older. I've had a few decades, experience of drawing and stuff now, a couple of decades seriously doing it. And I actually won. I either won or I came, I actually won either first, second or third place. I can't remember what, it might have been first. And that astounded me. And, but it's sort of like it's that kind of idea was never developed because art in school at the time, and may still do in some areas, be a case of learning to draw photographically almost. And that really, really put me off art completely. And being told I was useless and I couldn't draw a hand and I would never be allowed to do art. Yeah. So there you are, story time. I haven't got to drawing yet because when I tell stories, it can be difficult for me to draw. So I've put a frame in on the page. I like a frame. It gives me an area to work in. It feels like I'm almost taking a photograph. It's like looking through a window. And I find it, I can draw without that frame, but I much prefer one when I'm creating something. And the lovely thing about frames is, and I'm going to do this today, is I'm going to double it up, like so. And at some point in time, I'll fill this with a Zentangle pattern, possibly Aurora from yesterday. And I am just going to double up. I'm only going to double up on the inside for now, because I may use that outer space as well to add a pattern to. I'll see. I'm not going to pretend I'm going to get this all done in, a relatively short space of time today, but we're going to make a start. I'm going to try my best to give you some hints and tips and suggestions of how you approach this. And sort of like alternative ways as well. So mine's ticking over. Now I'm going to use this as the very foreground. This is almost like the ground at your feet. And so I don't want to have houses growing out of here. I want something else here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some flowers. Now, this isn't flowers. These are some leaves or bushes that the flowers can grow behind. Plenty of opportunity for adding patterns and texture here as well. And shadow or colour, whatever your preference is. So these are just U-shapes. If I zoom in, let me have a look, that's my zoom. For the next one, I'm going to start on this side and I'm going to draw part of one here just to get me started. And then I'm just going to draw upside down U-shapes or arches, like this. And I'm just going to add a little bit of darkness in between each of these leaves here. I just find it, I don't know why this appeals to me so much, it does. Reminds me a little bit of leading, where stained glass is joined, the lead is joined and around stained glass to create stained glass windows and such. But there's just something about it. It may be that it just emphasises, it gives you a definite sort of like almost curve there as they join together visually. Perhaps helps to emphasise that idea that they're joined. I don't know, but it does. And they don't have to be perfect. And I'm going right the way along here. So it looks like I've decided I'm going to have a whole row of these regardless of my little houses behind flowers. I'm not going to be using strict rules of perspective. This is whimsy. It's not realistic. It's not meant to be. It's meant to make you smile. It's meant to be full of fun and cute charm and innocence, I suppose. And there's nothing wrong with that as far as I am concerned. Some people might call it naive art or a form of folkish art. Does it matter? I don't know. Sometimes I think we're too quick to label things and put labels, as labels become limiting in some ways. But I do like a bit of whimsy. I do like quite simple art. And I've learnt the power of what the power of colour is in bringing simple drawings to life. So there we are. We've got rows of foliage here. So I went right the way along. So if I zoom out again, excuse me while my arm reaches across. Okay, so I want to put some flowers here, but I'm not going to do a whole row of flowers. I think I'm going to choose some places where I'm going to put just, some bunches of blooms. And I'm going to do my favourites to draw, which is a nice big centre and just some little rounded petals around them. And I may pop some behind like this. So I've tucked one in down here. I'm going to tuck another one in here. Because in my world I can have flowers all bunched up if I want to, like this. Now I'm confused here as to what's going on, so I think I'm just going to fill that bit black. I'm going to have another sort of circle here and some more petals. Oh, and I'm using an 05 size nib here. It's quite broad. I'm having to draw quite, in comparison to the size of things I'm drawing. But it makes me draw that little bit bigger as well. Fine pens, I have this overwhelming desire to draw microscopically small. He's nice. I'm also aware, suddenly, the way I've applied colour to this and how I've chosen the bottom of this. I've got a sort of like greeny blue colour on the bottom. And so that suggests sort of like plants and things that grow. Now I'm a bit of a, I won't say stickler for, but I do tend to want to put things that are similar on either side for some reason. And I think it's got to do with me wanting things to sort of like tie in together. To feel as if it's a coherence or congruity. I think that might be a word that might apply here. It's that feeling that they are part of the same, that they belong here. So I've got some little hummocks of these, and I'm going to put some towards the centre. Too symmetrical? Possibly. But I'm going to move this central bunch to the left just a little, so I'm taking them a little bit off centre. And perhaps not so many of them. Just a little hummock there, which is quite nice. So I've got these, and I now feel that I'd like to start to draw some houses. So I'm not going to start at the edges. I'm going to start somewhere in the middle, and I'm not even going to think about where I'm going to start. I'm just going to start because they will fall together as we need it to. So I think I'm going to take a pencil. Got a pencil here. Got this one. And I'm just going to draw in roughly the size of the house and where I want its roof. Now, even though I've drawn in a sort of like triangular shape on the top, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to stick to that. I think you can just about make it out. I've done it very faintly because rubbing pencil out on top of distress inked paper can be an issue because it can pick up the ink. And I don't want to do that. So, and this house, I am going to make it not boxy, because I don't want a little box, but I do want some structure to it. So this is going to be just under the roof, and I'm going to do a checkerboard pattern here. So I've split this about in half, and then the bigger space I've split in half again, and then either side in half. And that gives me an even spread. It's just a logical way of doing this. I then want to give another little bit that sticks out to the roof, and then perhaps halfway down this I'm going to add a little bit that sticks out, and I will go roughly up to there, turn my paper so I can see what I'm doing, and down there, and then I'm going to draw a narrower version of that inside, like so. I don't think it's architecturally correct because this really should sit on top here, so I may just add some horizontal lines here, like so, to suggest that it's all one piece really. Again, architectural rules don't really apply to whimsical houses. They can be anything you want them to be. I like to do a little border inside. Borders like that make me happy, and I'm going to do the same on the outside of this, and here is where I'm going to let it just go down and round the edge a little bit. And my houses always have finials on the top of one kind or another, and on this one, it's my first one, so I'm going to pop a heart on the top. You can put anything there. If you just look at, I mean, we see the most amazing sort of like finials on roofs at times around me. There's some that have dragons. They have dragons on the end. It's fantastic. I love it. So, and perhaps that makes sense. I could put that there. So that's lovely. I am going to start drawing a little bit in about halfway along this square, and instead of having a straight edge to my house, I'm just going to curve it out a little bit because I quite like that shape. It looks almost like a chess piece, and if you think of chess pieces for inspiration, you can't really go too far wrong, I think. Just going to put a little what do you call them, border there, which I'm going to leave plain at the moment. Just going to go back and just touch up some areas here and there as I see them. This pen's nib is getting a bit old now, and it's not always easy to use. I flattened it by drawing on the top of it and applying too much pressure at times. Okay, so now this house, there's lots of things I could do. I've put a door in it, I can put a window there. I think a window might be quite nice. Just a window, because perhaps the door's on the other side of the house. I'll put a windowsill at the bottom, and then just inside like that. And now I've got options here because I've got all of this space here that I can play with in terms of either colour or pattern. I've got this one here as well. I know what I think I'd like to do here. I'm going to split that way. I'm going to create almost like a square tile here. And then, oh, I wish I'd learnt or had a good look at Thomas Padris's new pattern. It's called Folium, tanglepatterns.com. And that would fit here. Can I remember how he did it? Sorry, Thomas, if you ever watch this and you see me make a mess of it. I think he does it by... Let me zoom in and you can see then, because this is very tiny. So I'm going to put 4 lines that come up from the centre of each of the squares, a circle on these, then you create a triangle shape at the base of the lines. So you've basically got a triangle with a circle on the top like that, and you've automatically got this feeling that you've got some leaves here. I'm just going to round the corner there, and then I'm just going to pop some lines in this way. It's a very medieval floor tile pattern, that one, and that may be where he's got the inspiration from. So I like that. Can I do this in these? Most probably we can do a half version of it, like a half tile. Now to draw this I am using an 01 pen because these are really tiny spaces, which is why it's always a very good idea to draw things bigger than you think you're going to need them. Okay, so I've drawn the lines with the circles on the end. I'm then going to alter the lines to turn them into triangles, and then round the corners a bit, and there I've added that line for the leaf there. So that actually looks really quite cute. I like that. That worked out really well. Okay, this part here, I could add tangle patterns to it, but I think I may just pop in for now just some borders. I'm going to avoid putting anything where the bottom of the window is, and I'm going behind the flowers there with this border. Don't need to worry too much about this one. I'm going to fill that in black there because that takes care of that, so I don't have to worry about trying to fit any part of any pattern I put in there. And that, I think, is my first house done. Door round the back, doesn't have to be at the front. So that's the first house. Let me zoom out. There we go. Have some tea. I've had breakfast, but I haven't finished my tea yet. Oh, it was naughty. I had Crave cereal, the chocolate hazelnut one, with bananas and a banana and some strawberries. Oh, and milk. It was lovely. I have to say, I enjoy things like that from time to time. Okay, so this here looks really awkward. So I can see that this line here is just really awkward. So I'm going to add another little flower here to try to disguise that awkwardness. I think I might have made a mistake by filling this in with black, but it is what it is. And I am going to add a tree here, and I think I'm going to make it really a simple shape because you don't have to go complicated, and perhaps another one just here, and then a third one on that side, and I'll come back and perhaps add some pattern to those after I've added another house. So let's get another house going. Perhaps I'll add another another one here, so I've got some space here. I'm going to tuck the next house or tower, I think. I'll have a tower. Because I do like towers. So I'm putting my tower in here, and you can see it goes behind this tree. So this, automatically, I'm shoving it backwards. So I could have some more stuff at the bottom of it if I want. I'm going to add a platform or a series of steps here, upside down steps at the top. And I'm going to look for the centre, roughly draw a line up in the centre just to guide me. And I think this one, I think I might go with a roof that's got a very unusual shape. I think that kind of shape looks interesting. It's almost like a pointy roof has been blown over. But let's have a look. Let me just start by inking in my pencil lines here. So I will adapt that shape. It looks a bit bulbous on this side, or perhaps a bit too much there. We'll have a look now. Perhaps I've gone too far over there. Or perhaps I don't need to. Let me just adjust this slightly. Should have. There's my bit of eraser. Excuse my arm going across. This is a kneadable eraser, and I can use it very lightly just to remove some of this pencil. So perhaps I can go over to one side like that, and perhaps just have the roof like that, perhaps. No, not sure about that. Just erase it all as much as I can. And I'm going to go back to this one and erase some of the pencil lines there. I'm being quite heavy-handed with this roof, actually. So let me have a look there. Perhaps I can have a... No, that won't work. I'm drawing in the air, imagining the shape, and I just can't get to a shape I like. So I thought I'd try and do something a bit different, but it's not going to work for me. So I'm going to do this kind. And at the top here, I've left the lines open because that'll give me an opportunity to add something at the top here. Nice big orb. And this roof isn't perfectly symmetrical. I wouldn't have expected it to be, because I'm drawing it by hand. But I am just going to pop some shapes like this here. And at the bottom, I'm going to add some little arches like that. Bit of sculptural detail. I quite like that. Now for my tower, those are coming in a little bit there. So I drew the first one, the one on the left, a little bit going inwards. So the way to adapt this is to add, well, I think so. I can just add some more towers, and perhaps one here that's just that little bit wider, and then I can widen my tower like that at the bottom to give it a really nice base. Okay, but this section here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop some arches in as well. I haven't got 4 full ones in. I didn't think that through properly, but it is what it is. And I'm also going to put some taller arches here for windows, or just columns and decoration. If I thought about it, I could have created columns here, perhaps, but these will do as they are. And I'll also take a finer pen. I've got an 03, and I'll use that to draw inside of these so that it looks like they are windows or even doorways. Reminds me of a clerestory in a church, really. Okay, and the other thing I might do is add some little triangles pointing down here, and then I'm going to pop the lines in like that, and that will just give me, I'm thickening the edge there, so if I thicken the lines in one, I need to thicken them on the others, and that just gives me this kind of shape. In fact, if I colour all of those in, that will feel, yeah, that feels more deliberate. There we go. All right, and down on the bottom, I am going to just pop a very light pencil line here, because I'm going to add some of these in here as well, but I'm not going to put the course underneath them. I'm just going to leave them like this, I think. There we go, so I've got that. But what I am going to do is I will pop a border in there, and then that leaves me some space at the bottom to do things with. This one at the top, I do want to do something with these spaces, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of these arches here at the bottom and just repeat them up, but with some space between them, because that space then gives me options of things to do. And I'm also going to double them up so that I've got that border between sections as well. So there we are, there's our second house. And this one too needs some trees there, so I can add a different kind of tree in. And this one, I'm just going down, humping up, going down, humping up. That sounds so wrong. But I'll show you on this side. Let me just zoom in for you. Nope, wrong button. I know full well what the buttons are on the camera. Brain doesn't go into gear. So if I draw a upside down U shape there where I want the top of the tree, then I can curve upwards, go down a little up and down. So a little curve up, down, curve up, down, up, down. So we're gradually widening the shape of the tree as well. You can see there, I exaggerated the little curves there. I think I might just pop another one, a short one here. And these all look like they're behind each other, but if you want to draw one that's in front again, just leave a gap, draw one in front, and so on. So I've got some trees in there. Perhaps I'll pop another tree. Perhaps I'll pop a little tree in here of this same kind. It's a bit different because I've doubled the little U shapes there. And this looks a bit awkward, so I think I might just pop a tree behind them just to fill that little gap in. That feels a bit better. And the trees do look a bit bare, but that can be sorted afterwards. Let's just get all of these things in. Okay, we want another building here. So again, I want the building to look like it's behind the trees. So I'm going to make this one, perhaps I'll make it a 2-tower affair or 2-layer affair. Oh, I've got to try to guess where, and this one will be behind this one, literally, because I am building this upwards here. Perhaps another one here. Now these may not be exactly, I've got a leaning tower of Angela. That's okay, towers can lean. In fact, you can have them as wonky and wobbly as you like. Okay, and let's have a nice big, is that roughly centre? No, that is roughly centre. And I'm going to do a pointy roof on this one. There we go. So let me start with the bottom layer. Think layer cakes, kind of. Me making cakes of any kind like this would be an absolute nightmare. I tried icing cakes a long while ago. Many years ago, and it was an absolute disaster every time I did it. Other than just, let's cover this cake with icing. And let's make it look deliberately messy so it looks deliberate. Because I just couldn't do it. Just did not compute for me at all. So, strictly speaking, I think this would actually, yeah, it would actually come behind there. But that's okay. And I may just have this layer here about here. And this little space, it looks awkward at the moment. Everything looks a bit awkward, but it's when you start to add colour that things become really separate. And it's a case of learning to trust the process. So here I've got this one. So here I'm just bending these, instead of having perfectly shaped edges here, I've bent this one out a little bit. And I'm going to do the same here with this one. So straight or rounded. Instead now I'm starting to experiment a bit more with different shapes. I'm going to do that there. But here for my roof, I do want the roof to be wider than the... And what I've done is I've added some little kick-ups. Lines sort of like bend upwards a bit on the edge of this uppermost layer. And then I'm going to use that to create the shape of my roof, which I think works quite nicely. And before I do anything else, I am going to put my finial thing on the top. And this time I'm just going to put like a teardrop or a raindrop on the top. Okay, ooh. And here, for something that's a bit different, I'm going to have this one just bulging out a little bit for a bit of variation on the side. I could have done that with the others as well. It's only now I really thought about it. But it's okay, it's my building, and I'll build it as I want to, as the song goes. Well, or not. Okay, so here, I think here I'm going to have some tall windows. And at the bottom, I'll have a layer of tiles. It's my world. Again, you don't have to follow what I'm doing exactly. It's how you want to create things. This is your little town. And so how you'd like your houses to be is entirely up to you. I'll come back to that in a moment. Here for this, I'd rather like to do this almost like a sort of like a layer of stained glass. I don't really want to put separate windows in, although I could. Perhaps I will, and I'll sort of get my windows here in between the ones on the layer below, but I won't put any on the edge because I've got that strange shape going on. And perhaps behind my windows here, I'm just going to put a stripe as if they're held in place there by that, which I think will work quite nicely. So I've picked the O3 up. So I do like a window frame, I can't help it. Just like windows. Okay, and for this one, I'm not going to use, I could use the folium again. It's really good, I remembered that, I'm really impressed with myself. But I think I will pop borders inside, like so. But I'm going to use one of my favourite patterns, which is well in here. And I'm going to have them unusually all going in the same direction, because I like it when you alternate them and you get these lovely, almost ginkgo leaf shaped patterns. And I think I'll do the version where we turn these into little petals. So it looks like we've got little flowers here. Like so. There's quite a bit of contrast going on here at the moment. And those could actually be the windows if they were stained glass, couldn't they? Which I think is lovely. Okay, I'll do something with the roof now. Oh gosh, 42 minutes. I am conscious of time. This roof, I think I may what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some lines in here. Actually, I should have kept them fairly straight. Like so. Do you know, I've just had a thought, a memory. Story time again. I can remember when I was a teenager, there was either something on television that I saw. It was probably on Blue Peter, which was a kids' programme when I was growing up. And they had all kinds of, you know, they had things to do with news and events in the world and education and creative things on there, as well as the presenters doing all kinds of things. And I'm sure it would have been on there, but it may not have been because there were a lot of similar programmes around the same time. And they showed you how to make little houses out of paper, you know, by creating a grid and eventually folding them up but adding decorations before you did and gluing them together. And I found this absolutely fascinating. And I can remember having tons and tons, well, I mean, you know, fair amount of these little houses that I made. So we managed to find paper in the house, and or perhaps I bought some myself, and pens and pencils and so on to create these my own little village, three-dimensional village. They're all a bit wonky and wobbly. Well, mostly, or vaguely, but you know, I'll use the thicker pen for this. But you know, I had all sorts of houses, different shapes. So once you worked out the principle of making them, it was easy enough to change things like, you know, the length of them, height of them, to build different parts and put them together. So sort of like for a church, you could make the steeple, the tower, in one form, and then attach that to the body of the church, and so on. And because you're drawing on them, you could add details like clocks or towers and things like that. So I have a fond memory of doing that. I've completely forgotten about that. Isn't it funny how things can come back and give us an idea of where we're coming from, I suppose, with art. Well, I will use the 03 because, as nice as that is, I still want to do this kind of thing around them, just to add that extra bit of detail here. Again, colour or shadow will add a lot to this. I'm not planning to colour or shadow anything today. I'm just thinking about how we build all of this up. And this is going to be a very squashed in kind of area. So we've got that going on. So if I zoom out, you can see the whole of this so far. And the one thing I'm going to do here is I am going to pop a tree, because trees I find are great for spacing things. And like so, a couple of trees there, and perhaps a nice tall one here. Okay, so I've got these. Now then, I could, and I am going to, draw another building that goes behind these. So it looks like we've got a lot of depth here. And I'm going to draw it here, simply because I've got a little gap here. And if I go over here, I've got this awkward little gap and so on. So if I stick with it, so I've got plenty of space to add detail, but not tiny spaces that are going to be awkward. I mean, I could fill this tiny space here with another tree, and I may do that. In fact, I think I will. Perhaps I'll pop another tree in here, which will go behind this house and down here. And then that gives me just this area here to deal with, and perhaps this little bit there. So that'll work. Now I need to think about how tall I want this. I want a finial on the top, so I need to leave space for that. So I want it at least, you know, the most this tall. The roof I'm going to put on, I think I'll put one on. I think I'll put just a rounded roof. So if I do this here, and I just pop my roof like that, then I can work on building from the roof down. It's backwards, isn't it, to how you'd actually build a building. You start with the foundations and work up, but we're drawing, so it really doesn't matter which way we start. So here I'm going to draw my circular roof in, like so. I am going to add a little kick out like that. I think I'll do a narrower section here, and then perhaps this kind of shape again there. I've got that tiny area between the roof and the building here, so I'm going to fill that with black. And then I'm going to give myself this kind of shape here, and perhaps a little course there. Here I'm going to pop a border across because I can then add some lines in there that I can add pattern to or colour to. I'm going to do the same in this section where I'm going to try to match up the lines below. I'm going to have to put extra ones in because it's a little bit wider, but that matches in so it looks like we've got windows perhaps. Perhaps this is a huge building in the far distance, lots of windows. I'll put my finial on the top. I'm going to put something that looks like a little button on there, and then perhaps a little pole or little box there, this, and I'm going to put another shape like that on there, and then perhaps just a little circle on the top. For this one I do want to make it look like we've got ribs on the top, so I'm going to start in the middle like so, and then everything will go up towards the middle. So I'm having these bend towards a point there, and I'll add a double layer that side. They're further apart at the front of the dome here than they would be to the sides, so don't worry about making them getting closer together. In fact, that's needed to suggest that these are further away than the ones at the front. It's that if you have a look at things, you can, and you just visually measure it, you know, sort of like make an estimate. As you look at a dome, a photograph of a domed building with ribs like this on, and you'll see the further to the edges you go, the closer those ribs get. So it's not a perfect rendition. I've got some wobblynesses going on, and I've missed there a bit, but that's fine. Okay, so here I think I'd like rounded shapes here to suggest some really tall roofs, and I am putting them behind. That one's a bit too tall, but it is what it is. Behind this, as if you know, you can still see bits of them. And then here, I think I'm just going to leave this as it is for now, simply because, let me think, if I put another line in, we're getting confusing lines if I'm not careful. The way I get around that is I try to think about starting the line for this border here halfway down these, so it makes that disconnect between them before I start. So I will do another row of these kinds of things there. So we're beginning to get these layers, and I could put another building here that's even further in the background. Strictly speaking, the further away you go, the less detail you'll see. So here, the fact you can see a lot suggests this is a very big building, much bigger than these, you know, in its height and everything. So there's things like that. So this is a good start, isn't it, to a little whimsical village, a little whimsical city almost. And we're not going to have space to draw many more because this is just an A5 piece of paper. And I'm drawing quite big. I like to do big drawings. It gives me the opportunity to add patterns in. Colour will help as well. It gives, you know, it's easy to add colour to the tiny spaces. But there's lots of little details that can be added. I mean, on my flowers, these flowers I just love. To put a row of dots at the bottom edge. Instantly starts to bring some shadow and some dimension into them. If I can't get to the bottom edge, well, I'll add just a couple where to the sides like that, because it does the same kind of trick. So I can start to think about adding some details now. And the trees, these ones, I'm going to turn them into trees by making them like a giant leaf. But I'm going to make the veins patterned in a different kind of way, perhaps, to how we do it on a leaf. And that automatically begins to add that detail in that we're looking for. That helps with that sort of like suggestion of what these are. That they're not just empty spaces or weird shapes put there. They could be, I mean, you know, perhaps in your little whimsical world you quite fancy trees that are quite, you know, have very little detail in them. Almost like they're moulded out of concrete or something. And that's not a problem. Said, you know, I'm adding detail, but I do know that colour will greatly add to these as well. If the centre of the tree goes behind the building, that's fine. It's these shapes will help to separate it from the building itself. Just carry on doing them all the way down. And these then are part of the tree, not part of the building. And using a different thickness of pen helps with that separation as well. It says this is different to the line beside me. So there we are, we've got those. The other trees, with these I'm just tempted to pop some almost like berries or fruits in, just as a texture more than anything else. Again, where they meet, just put semicircles or, you know, part circles. She says, look at that, put part circle there, which doesn't make sense, but it is what it is, because they could just be a textural pattern. So I did it on that one, so that up here, so it looks like it's deliberate and not a mistake. So it means that this tree is a polka dot tree, because, well, an irregular polka dot. It's a dotty tree. In Britain, if we describe somebody as being a bit dotty, it means they're a bit dizzy, ditzy, you know, a bit forgetful. And here as well, the trick here is not to have any semicircles behind matching up with ones below. So they look like there's a whole circle, because that will join them together. So I'm starting to add some pattern there. Don't need to go any more complex than that, really, because well, you just don't need to. Here for this one, I am so tempted. I am going to do this because I am coming up to an hour, and I am conscious that my videos can get very long. So I'm going to do Aura, which was the tangle pattern I explored in my previous video. And it's a lovely, simple kind of pattern, but I think it will work really well here. And I am going to put an extra aura inside these circles, like so. It looks a bit odd. It's like I haven't managed to centre it around this window, which is a bit of a shame. But it is what it is. And underneath the next one, I think I'll use a slightly curved version of Shattuck. Again, this is one of my favourite kinds of filler patterns. Yeah, perhaps Aurora wasn't the best idea actually in hindsight, but hindsight is 2020, and it is what it is. And the worst thing, what I might actually do, and I may do that here and now, is that if I colour the whole of that section in black, then I can add a pattern on the top with white, with a white gel pen. And that's fine. Nothing is unfixable with a bit of creativity. In fact, I think I'll do that. So bear with me while I find my, I've got a pen that I can, there's a flexible nib that's got black ink in it. Flexible nib means I can get really nice broad lines, and it makes quick work of filling sections like this in. And I can also get quite fine lines depending on the pressure I apply. Ooh. And you can always go back and correct oops moments as well. There we go. So that is really black, and do you know what? I'm going to do the same at in the bottom level. Because it will give me, it's that feeling of repetition, or of having things belonging. And it's making me think now, do I want to do the same to that middle layer where I've put Shattuck? And the answer is probably, well, yeah, possibly. I'll have a look now. Not so easy to fill this one in because of all the lumpy bumpy bits. But it actually then helps to make sense of the black there. So I think I will do the same here because it makes sense to do that. And then I will find either a white gel pen, or I've got some Moonlight pens out that I've been using recently. Experimenting with lettering, and I think I'm finding my way. I think I may have finally worked out what it is I want to do with lettering. Possibly. It's going with what I love as well. It's combining things I love. So that looks very dull and boring. But shall I use white? No, let's use one of these. Pick a colour that goes with the background. I've got purples, I've got blues, I've got pale greens. So let me go with this. Moonlight 06. It's this colour. I don't know what colour, if it's got a particular colour, but it's the Jelly Roll Moonlight. So it's this pale lilac colour, which I think will go with the general tones here. It's not dissimilar to a purple that's appeared here, where the blue and the blue and the warmish, the warmish violet here is wilted violet. So what did I use? I used some picked raspberry, I think. No, seedless preserves, wilted violet, broken china and peacock feathers to create this colour, and it's worked really nicely. So I've got this here now. How am I going to add patterns to these? Well, I think I'm going to keep it fairly simple, and let's do some polka dots here in this one. If I do go over a black line that I want to leave, it's no great problem because I can always draw over the top of these with black again. So, and they stand out just enough. Okay, so we'll do that, and perhaps we'll keep that pattern going in the next layer and the layer below. I'm not too sure about this, to be honest. My tendency is to want to fill spaces in with more density of pattern than this, but it is what it is for now. And we'll just work with it and leave it be, and it'll be fine in the grand scheme of things. Just lightens the black up that little bit. White would be even brighter, but I can't see a white in the pencil case to hand, so it's in a different pencil case now again. So, as I said, nothing is irredeemable. Have a white gel pen or Moonlight pens if you've got them in your stash, and you can then colour something in black and use that to colour instead, or to pattern instead. It works. Bit of a thick line for me, but it, you know, it is what it is. Part of me wants to, you know, I may come back and add white in the centre of those. I'll see how I feel when I find a white gel pen. So I'm going to say here, thank you so much for joining me. I hope this has given you a good start to creating your own whimsical village or city or buildings. If you want to create more, bigger paper, I think you've got some more ideas here for roof styles, how to pattern roofs as well, even though the building shapes might be similar. And that simple ways of drawing trees. I do love my ones that are like leaves. They, well, you know, I'm going to say this quickly because I keep saying I'm going to go now and I come back with something else. It's an issue I have in life in general. If you look at a tree from a distance, you can't see its individual leaves, but you know they're there, and you also know that underneath that are branches. If you take a leaf from a particular tree and you look at the shape of the leaf and you look at the shape of the tree, you will see that they are very similar. And if you're able to see the underlying branches, sometimes, not always, but sometimes the veins in the leaves look similar to the pattern of those branches. So in my head, it makes sense. Well, I don't want to draw every leaf on a tree because that leads me down a slippery slope to basically pen froth on the page. Excuse me. But if I can create a stylized tree using leaves, then that works for me. And it works here. It's just simple. You look at how architects draw trees and you'll see that they're very stylized, often identical, you know, with a key next to them to say what trees they are. And, you know, it just works. So it's whimsy, it's stylized art, it's representational, but in a very simplified way and a fun way. And so please have a go. Get as complex or as simple as you like. You may not like all the details I've put in here. You don't have to put windows into whimsical houses or doors. There's not a door in sight here, because I'm just telling you they're all around the other side where you can't see them. But if you look at art journals, if you have just search for art journals on Pinterest, wherever houses are done there, then they don't always have windows and things, and sometimes they just have a big heart, or they're just there as the suggestion that they're a house. They might have writing inside them instead, and it's just that suggestion. It looks like a house, you know it's a house, but we're expressing ourselves in a different way. I happen to quite like windows, and I happen to quite like rounded arches and pointy arches and towers and things like that, so it's going to come out in what I draw. So, with no further ado, I will say goodbye this time for today. If you're watching this on Saturday, the 28th of May, then tomorrow's Sunday, and I don't do videos on Sunday, especially as I've got things I've got to get done. I'm still working on my fanciful Birds book. I think it's Fanciful Birds, yeah. Book. I've got a few templates left to sketch. I've got a poster to complete as well that needs to be sent off by the end of the month. So I'm running close to the wire yet again, which is what I do. I procrastinate until I'm forced to do things. And I work best like that in some ways. So anyway, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, have fun, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now. Bye.